suggestion is until ma-fund yung Maharlika Wealth Fund, yun muna ang puntahan ng mga dividends ng BSP. Once fully capitalized ng BSP, yung declared dividends ng BSP may be earmarked again to the Maharlika Wealth Fund. We maintain that the Development Bank of the Philippines and the Land Bank of the Philippines should be subject to prudential regulations. Like any other banks, DBP and LBP source their funds mainly from depositors, and hence regulations have been put in place to safeguard the public and depositors' money.
I would even be as bold to propose that the majority of the board should probably be independent directors and definitely not appointed by the president. Because by nature, if you're a presidential appointee, you're a political appointment.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time. I'm Maricel Halili.
And I'm Angela Lagunzad. The big story tonight.
More changes are being eyed to the controversial Maharlika Investment Fund Bill amid concerns from both government officials and private sectors.
So far, one of the biggest changes in the bill is the removal of the GSIS and SSS as contributors. Marian Enriquez with the big story.
Marikina Representative Stella Quimbo proposed more amendments to the Maharlika Wealth Fund Bill. She said the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas shall eventually remit 100% of its dividends to the MWF.
Ang suggestion is until ma-fund yung Maharlika Wealth Fund, yun muna ang puntahan ng mga dividends ng BSP. Pagka napondohan na yun, magkaroon naman ng sharing agreement para ma-address yung capitalization needs ng BSP, so 50-50. And then once fully capitalized ng BSP, yung declared dividends of BSP may be earmarked again to the Maharlika Wealth Fund.
Recall that the proponents earlier announced that pension funds won't be used for the MWF, at least for now. This means the initial fund for the MWF will now be sourced from government financial institutions. The BSP meanwhile raised concerns about the proposed exemptions of Land Bank and Development Bank of the Philippines from regulatory restrictions.
The proposed exemption of DBP and LBP from applicable regulations may lead to undercalculation of their overall risk profile and may adversely affect the safety and soundness of their operations.
PAGCOR and other government-owned gaming corporations shall also contribute 10% of their gross revenue streams.
May we also request that the funding be limited for a period of 2 years only to enable PAGCOR to support the funding requirements of the universal health care.
The House Appropriations Committee approved Quimbo's proposed amendments for MWF fund sources. Quimbo also proposed that instead of the sitting president, the finance secretary shall serve as chairman of the board. Quimbo also wants 7 members to represent the fund contributors. Their seats will depend on the size of their investment. Quimbo also proposed to have 4 independent directors from the private sector in MWF board. Lawmakers will discuss the proposed changes to the MWF board composition during their next hearing. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Here to give his take on the latest developments regarding the Maharlika Investment Fund Bill, we have on the line Senate Minority Leader Senator Kiko Pimentel. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the big story.
Mayang gabi, kaninyong tanan. I'm glad to be with a big story. Well, that's not really a big story. They keep on changing their minds, and I think that is not the way to propose a very important entity to be created, no? The Sovereign Wealth Fund. I think they should have brainstormed this properly before filing, and then they're discussing all the changes in public. It confuses the people.
Okay, but sir, let's discuss the amendments to this bill. What are your thoughts about the amendments on certain provisions, including their decision to remove GSIS and SSS from the contributors? Are these a step, or are this step in the right direction?
In the first place, we are being led into discussing concepts which are secondary, the sources of the funds. The first question is, do we really need this sovereign wealth fund right now? And can we afford it? Can we afford to do so? And then is corruption no longer an issue here in the Philippines? So these are the basic questions first. Tignan mo, they paid attention to sources of funds first, and then turns out that they made a big mistake, because these are assets which are not even owned by the government or the republic or of the republic, but of private individuals. So wag muna yan po ang tanong natin. Ang tanong natin ano ba itong sovereign wealth fund? Sino ba makikinabang dito, at can afford pa tayo gawin ito? Dapat ito, kasi ang sovereign wealth fund is a funding mechanism for a government of a state which has surpluses. May extra money ka bago mo po to iniisip. So are we already in that league? I don't think so. So yan na muna po ang sagutin nila, kaysa sa pumupunta na sila sa detalye na kabago-bago naman ang isip nila. Alam mo niyo kung bakit pabago-bago isip nila? Kasi hindi nila sinasagot yung basic question.
Yeah, but having said that, Senator, what do you see as the next step for the proposed MWF or Maharlika Welfare Fund bill? Do we see it being filed in the Senate soon? Also, we would like to.
Number one, I am not a supporter of their idea. Okay, so I advise them to develop your idea first properly, so we can debate it well in the Senate. Okay, so pagdating sa Senate po niyan, we will really have to debate the concept very well. So far, wala pa naman. No one has filed, I think, a similar bill in the Senate. So we'll just wait for it to reach the Senate, and we'll subject it to extensive questioning. Pero we will start with that, with that basic concept. What is this sovereign wealth fund that you are proposing? Why is the name? Why did you use that name? Do we really have a surplus or a windfall which we can use? So, yeah, and then corruption, of course. Alam mo na political culture in the Philippines. So the corruption, paano? So this might only be another avenue for leakage of public funds.
So marami pa talagang discussions na gagawin. Thank you for joining us this evening, Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel. Now, to get more insights on the Maharlika Wealth Fund, we now have over the line House Senior Deputy Minority Leader Paul Daza. Sir, magandang gabi po sa inyo. Welcome to the big story.
Good evening. Maupay nga gabi sa iyong tanan.
Okay, sir, una sa lahat, what do you think of the amendments made on the Maharlika Wealth Fund? Binago yung mga sources, wala ng GSIS, wala ng SSS, and yung Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas will remit 100% dividends to the Maharlika funds. What do you think of this, sir?
Yeah, I think I speak for many, if not most of the members in the House, whether in the minority or majority. I think most of us think there are good intentions, but the bill needed improvement. And that's why I'm personally grateful. In fact, I've spoken to many of my colleagues sa House na maganda yung mga amendments na ginawa. For example, yung GSIS, SSS, hindi na ngayon pwedeng gamitin. Okay, now, may isang development kanina sa Committee on Appropriations, which I support, na hindi na ang president ang magiging chairman of the board of directors pag natuloy yan. Sabi ko nga kanina na counterproductive kung ang president chairman dahil no-win situation yon. Pag kumita yung fund, di ba, sasabihin ng mga tao, pinagkitaan. Pag nalugi, sisisihin yung ang president. So sabi ko, magandang amendment yon, i-layer natin ang president. Because if this bill passes, we're not speaking of just the Marcos administration. It will be next, generations to come. So yun yung isang magandang improvement which I support. Propose ni Vice Chair Quimbo, the original bill had 2 independent directors. She's now proposing 4. I proposed 8 out of the 15. Nasabi ko dapat majority ng board independent and dapat hindi appointed ng president para talagang truly independent.
Right. And what other Maharlika Wealth Fund bill revisions do you plan to push through during deliberations at the House of Representatives?
Well, this morning, when we had the Committee on Appropriations hearing on it, I voiced out my objection that the national budget, or what we call the general appropriations, be used as a source of funding for the Maharlika. Yan yung medyo hindi na pag-uusapan na dapat malaman ng taong bayan. So I said na essentially deficit spending tayo, muutang tayo para lang mapuno yung annual budget. Kulang-kulang pa, kulang tayo ng eskwelahan. Kulang tayo ng increase ng sweldo ng mga teachers. Kulang tayo ng mga hospital, mga clinic, kalsada. Bakit natin gagamitin yung national budget as a source for Maharlika? Hindi dapat. Inassure ako kanina ng sponsors that they have already made the move na tanggalin din yung national budget as a source of fund. Hindi in-approve sa committee kanina, kaya yan yung isang babantayan ko na dapat yan talaga matanggal as a source of funding, yung national annual budget natin.
We have a lot to talk about, but thank you for your time and insights, Northern Samar 1st District Representative Paul Daza. After the break, the Agriculture Department is expecting lower onion prices later this month. We'll be discussing this with Anak Pawi's National Chairperson and former DAR Secretary Rafael Mariano. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching the big story here on One News. Prices of onion remain high nearly 2 weeks before Christmas. But the Agriculture Department says it's expecting prices to slide by the end of the month. Shaila Francisco with a report.
Prices of onions remain high in Kamuning Market and other markets in Metro Manila. Red onions are priced between 240 to 300 pesos per kilo. Because of this, some retailers are cutting down on volume due to high input costs.
Kasi baka biglang magbaba, dilugi ako. Paano mamahal ang bili mo tapos biglang bumaba? Paano yun?
The Agriculture Department said onion prices may start to go down later this month due to early harvests. For now, the country still has an inventory of 10,000 metric tons of red onions.
Sabi naman ng ating Bureau of Plant Industry, makakasurvive tayo at matatawid natin yan with the supply ngayon na inventaryo na nakikita natin. If you're looking at mga 3,000 metric tons, 3,000 metric tons siguro per week, habol pa tayo. Pero pag yan ay tumaas, mukhang tingnan natin ulit.
But according to the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura, reduced harvests are expected this month due to the impact of recent typhoons. The group recommends the importation of onions for the holiday season.
Dapat as soon as possible mag-issue na ng SPSIC. Within 10 days to 15 days naman makapasok ito. We hope na kung may pasok yan, mabenta ng 80 pesos yung puting sibuyas. Yun, makakatulong yun dun sa pula siguro at least bababa.
The DA said they are still studying the inventory to avoid an influx of imported onions.
Meron kang desisyon na mag-import, pero baka dito lang yung iba na sibuyas na yan sa ating paligid. That's why binabantayan na natin yung mga perto. Baka sa paligid, once you issue yung import permit, baka maglabasan yan. Sa timing at saka yung atin pong sistema.
For now, the department is appealing to local onion producers and traders to release their stocks to help lower market prices. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
To help us understand better this issue with onion supply, we have former Agrarian Reform Secretary Rafael Mariano over Zoom. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the big story.
Magandang gabi sa inyo, Maricel at Angela, at mga sumusubaybay sa inyong programang The Big Story.
Yes, sir. Ito na nga po, nakakaiyak pa rin po yung issue po ng presyo ng sibuyas ngayon. Sapat na po ba ang expected supply from local harvest to bring down itong presyo?
Bukod dyan sa sinasabing meron naman tayong sapat na supply, bagaman may mga grupo tulad ng SINAG na nagpapanukala ng karagdagang importasyon ng pula at puting sibuyas. Para po sa kilusang bukid ng Pilipinas, hindi po importasyon ang agarang paraan. Para po sa amin, para sa kilusang bukid ng Pilipinas, para mapababa talaga natin ang presyo ng sibuyas sa ating lokal na pamilihan. Gamitin ng gobyerno ang Section 7 ng The Price Act of 1992. Ano po ito? Yung pagpapairal muna ng mandated price ceiling. Dahil sinasabi itong nasabing pertinenting provision ng nasabing batas, the President, upon the recommendation of the implementing agency, halimbawa Department of Agriculture or the Price Coordinating Council, may impose a price ceiling on any basic necessity of prime commodity if any of the following conditions are warrant. Isa puro sa 5 kondisyon, whenever the prevailing price of any basic necessity or prime commodity has risen to unreasonable levels. Hindi naman po talaga reasonable levels yan pakataas. So mayroon pong pwedeng gawin. May poder, may mandato ang gobyerno katulad ng Department of Agriculture. Ano pa po yung isa? Pwede rin pong gamitin ang Section 9 ng nasabing The Price Act of 1992. Ito po naman hinggil sa allocation of a buffer fund to the implementing agency. Halimbawa, ang Department of Agriculture. Ano po ang provision nito? The implementing agency may procure, purchase, import, or stockpile any basic necessity or prime commodity, devise ways and means of distributing them for sale at reasonable prices. So, ibig sabihin, meron pong pwedeng gawin ang gobyerno. Itagdag pa po natin, nagtataniman na ngayon, marami nang nakatanim na magpasta natin ng sibuyas. Doon po sa amin sa Nueva Ecija, sa bayan ng Quezon, sa aming bayan, magkatabing bayan po yan, Quezon Aliaga. Nagtatanim na po at marami na pong nakatanim ng sibuyas. Ano po kailangan? kailangan po ang subsidyo sa produksyon, para sa farm inputs, para sa fuel subsidy ng ating mga magsasaka nagtatanim ng sibuyas. Pumahagi lamang po ang gobyerno doon sa pamagitan ng Department of Agriculture ng kalahati man lang ng gastusin sa bawat isang hektaryang tinataniman ng sibuyas. Malaking tulong na po yun at mapapataas na matulong sa ating mga magkasaka na nagtatanim ng sibuyas at mapapataas pa natin ang ating produksyon ng sibuyas sa ating bansa. Ano po, mapaakyat lang lamang natin ang ating average yield per hectare na mga 15 tons ng sibuyas at mapataas pa natin, mapalaki natin ang tinataniman ng sibuyas sa ating bansa from 18,000 to 25,000 hectares. Mapapataas na po natin ang produksyon nating lokal. Hindi na po natin kailangan po mag-angkat. Kaya nating abutin ma-attain yung ating sariling kasapatan para sa seguridad na rin, hindi lang sa pagkain,
Sir,
kundi sa patayang pangailangan ng ating
opo,
mga mamamayan.
puputulin ko lang po kayo saglit, sir. Ano po, kasi marami na rin po kayong naibigay na proposal on how to control or at least mais ng kaunti yung prices of onions. But aside from the supply, actually one of the reasons na tinuturo nila kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng issue sa supply is because of the alleged hoarding. Kaya nagkakaroon sila ng pagsilip din sa inventory of onions. Do you think the government is doing enough to address this problem?
Ay kitang-kita naman po natin. Hindi po, kung may price manipulation, profiteering, hoarding, at iba pang mga kaparaanan para mapalaki yung tubo ng mga, hindi lang yung malalaking trader natin at importer ng sibuyas, dapat doon po ando ng intervention dapat ng gobyerno. Hindi po nababayaan yung ating mga mamamayan na katulad po sa karanasan namin. Isang kilo ng sibuyas sa farm gate, 40 pesos, 50 pesos, mataas na 60 pesos per kilo. Magkano po ngayon ang locally procured sibuyas natin, lalo na yung imported. So, ang layo na po ng agwat. So, ibig po nating sabihin dito, ng Kilusambukin ng Pilipinas, kaya pong gawin na mapababa yung presyo ng sibuyas sa ating lokal na pamilihan na hindi kinakailangan ng karagdagang importasyon.
Thank you for sharing your time with us, former Agrarian Reform Secretary Rafael Mariano. Right after the break, Meralco customers can expect higher power rates this month as the company wraps up its refund to consumers. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News. Meralco customers can expect higher electricity bills for this month. The power distributor said rates went up by at least 3 centavos per kilowatt hour. That translates to around 66 pesos for a typical household consuming 200 kilowatt per hour. Meralco explained that the completion of refund for customers triggered the hike. Another round of power rate increase is expected by January 2023 due to San Miguel Global Power's suspension of its supply deal with Meralco.
No plans yet for Christmas? Baguio City is ready to welcome tourists who are looking for a holiday getaway. Jenny Dongon with a story.
More tourists are now flocking to Baguio ahead of the holidays. One famous attraction in the City of Pines is its night market along Harrison Road. Here, people could find all kinds of goods, from nice clothing to food trips. It opens at 9 in the evening until 1 in the morning. Baguio's Botanical Garden is also offering Christmas feels.
Super, ramdam mo na talaga yung Pasko. Aside from the weather, makikita mo na rin sa mga napakadaming dekorasyon, sa dami ng tao, marami na rin celebration as well. Ayan, so mga kainan, so makikita mo talaga. Ayan, so good, at least merong revenue ang ating city.
Meanwhile, this Instagrammable rose garden features world-class lighting. Local officials said tourist arrivals are now back to pre-pandemic levels. This December alone, they expect up to 400,000 visitors.
Travel revenge is real. On the top of mind of many of our travelers, our city is really very accessible, no? From the lowlands. The charm of Baguio, having this cold weather, and at the same time, we are offering really a different experience.
With this, most hotels and other establishments are already fully booked.
It's starting to become difficult to book for particularly yung mga peak days. Ang observe naming peak days are those yung approaching Christmas, no, starting 23 and up to New Year na yon. That week between Christmas and New Year, that's the most popular days for booking and accommodation here in Baguio. Yun ang medyo nalilimitahan na, particularly the big hotels, no, they are already declaring na 100% booked na sila, no?
Tourists may visit the Baguio Visita website to check available accommodations. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, we are One News.
So wala pa tayong plans for Christmas, but I'm willing to go to Baguio for Christmas.
When was the last time you went to Baguio?
PMA graduation. It's not even a vacation.
Okay.
Coverage. Pero masaya pa rin. Traffic nga lang.
Pre-pandemic pa eh.
Matagal na. Pagplanuhan na natin. And that's the big story tonight.
That's right.
For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Maricel Halili.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News now, anytime, anywhere. I'm Angela Lagunzad. Stay safe, Philippines, and happy holidays. We're down to our last 16 days before Christmas. We are One News, all sides, all the time.